The twin moons hung above Lethara like patient witnesses as Aelira hurried across the hover bridge, her long ears bouncing with every anxious step. She kept telling herself she was absolutely not trying to avoid the human warrior. She was simply taking the scenic route, which just happened to be the longest possible path to her workplace and, tragically, directly away from the diplomatic wing where he was staying. Pure coincidence, obviously. The bridge hummed under her feet, its translucent panels glowing soft blue. She normally loved the view. Sky gardens drifting lazily between suspension towers, the glimmer of silver-leafed trees swaying in artificial breezes, the distant whir of transport shuttles weaving patterns like metallic fireflies. But today everything felt too bright, too exposed, as if every leaf and light knew she was thinking about Orion Holt again. She muttered to herself, trying to keep her ears from twitching. Completely normal thoughts, very academic. Absolutely no emotional attachment whatsoever. A passing elder gave her a suspicious look, probably because her left ear twitched in a guilty arc. She straightened, coughed politely, and resumed walking as if she had never whispered to herself in her life. Inside the Hall of Records, holographic texts unfolded around her like ghostly wings. She sat at her station and attempted to focus on cataloging ancient star maps. Unfortunately, the maps insisted on projecting images of brave historical figures holding up shields. Shields that reminded her annoyingly of the one Orion had used when he saved her people months ago. She groaned and pushed the projection away. Her best friend, Riel, peered over a stack of crystalline tablets. "You're thinking about the human again." Aelira's ears betrayed her instantly with a small, traitorous flutter. "No, I am thinking about cartography. Does cartography usually make you blush?" "I'm not blushing," Aelira said, though her reflection in the floating panel suggested otherwise. "Also, my ears are merely reacting to dust." "There is no dust here," Riel replied. "The filtration system costs more than a shuttle cruiser." Aelira covered her ears with both hands. "Then it is reacting to shame." Riel laughed and sat beside her, swinging her legs. "Just talk to him. The council says the ritual of gratitude must be performed eventually." "Yes, eventually," Aelira said with dread. "Preferably sometime after the heat death of the universe." Before Riel could tease back, a soft chime echoed through the hall. A diplomatic arrival notification. Aelira froze. She didn't have to check the display to know who it was. Orion Holt had returned. Her heart performed an impressive backflip. Riel nudged her gently. "You're going to be fine, just breathe." Breathing seemed like an optional feature she hadn't unlocked yet, but she nodded anyway. She gathered her scrolls, then promptly dropped half of them. One bounced off the wall, ricocheted off a floating lamp, and landed in an archivist's tea. The archivist sighed the sigh of someone who had experienced Aelira-related accidents before. Aelira fled. She didn't intend to run straight into Orion, but fate had clearly decided to have fun today. As she turned the corner, she collided solidly with someone very tall, very warm, and very confused. "Aelira!" Orion steadied her with both hands. "Are you okay?" There he was, the calm-eyed human warrior whose presence made her brain short-circuit. His dark hair was slightly wind-tousled, his expression soft and steady. For reasons unknown, he carried a small hovering creature tucked under one arm, something that looked like a cross between a cat and a floating sponge. Aelira attempted dignity. "Yes, I am functioning." The creature squeaked cheerfully. Orion smiled, the kind that sent her ears into a full, uncontrolled wave. "It's good to see you again. I wasn't expecting such an energetic greeting." She took a step back, nearly tripping on absolutely nothing. The floor betrayed her out of spite. "Your arrival startled me, and that animal, what is it?" "Oh, this thing. It keeps following me. I think I accidentally bonded with it by feeding it a cracker." Aelira blinked. "You performed the first meal bond ritual." "The what?" "You gave it food. That makes you its chosen protector for life." Orion stared at the happily hovering creature. "Oh, great. I've adopted a floating sponge cat." Despite herself, Aelira laughed. The sound echoed lightly through the corridor. Orion's gaze softened, and for a moment the air between them felt warm, unpressured, real. "I was hoping to talk to you," he said. Your council mentioned some kind of ceremonial exchange. I don't want to do anything wrong. Elira's ears snapped upright. Yes, the ritual, it is delicate, very delicate. Delicate in ways that are difficult to describe without fainting. His brows lifted in concern. Should we sit down first? No, I mean yes. I mean standing is acceptable. She inhaled sharply. The ritual is not dangerous, unless improperly performed. Then it could cause emotional intensity. In humans or Letharans. Both. He chuckled, a warm sound that made her chest tighten. Well, maybe you can explain it to me later, slowly, preferably with diagrams. Diagrams help, she agreed too quickly. They walked together down the corridor, the sponge cat drifting alongside them like an odd chaperone. Elira felt the familiar tension rising again, but found it tempered by Orion's gentle humor, by the casual way he spoke, by how earnestly he tried not to make her nervous, even though it absolutely did anyway. She realized, with a strange flutter of relief, that maybe this wouldn't be as terrifying as she feared. Maybe their worlds weren't as far apart as tradition claimed. Maybe, just maybe, the ritual wouldn't be the end of her composure, but the beginning of something she wasn't quite ready to name. Her ears twitched softly, but this time she didn't try to hide them. Elira had never wished for invisibility before, but as she stared at the ancient ritual scroll unfurled across her desk, she found herself praying to every star and sub-star deity she knew. The symbols shimmered with a faint violet glow, projecting animated diagrams above the parchment. These diagrams were breathtakingly unhelpful, two figures standing a precise distance apart, their foreheads touching, their hands hovering awkwardly like they weren't sure if they were greeting each other or performing interpretive dance. Riel lounged nearby, legs crossed, chewing a piece of glowgum that pulsed blue with every bite. So you're telling me you have to stand exactly 3 paces away from him. What happens if you stand at 4? The energies fail to align, Elira muttered, and the ritual becomes a gesture of polite gratitude instead of meaningful exchange. Riel snorted, and that would be a tragedy. It would be a breach of tradition. Elira tapped the glowing diagram. The ancestors required precise spacing to prevent emotional imbalances. Your ancestors sound like they needed hobbies. Elira ignored her, mostly. The diagrams rotated, showing the next step. Then comes the forehead touch. Riel clapped. Romantic. Mortifying, Elira corrected. Deeply, spiritually mortifying. Same thing. Elira sighed and collapsed against her chair. Her long ears drooped so dramatically that Riel briefly reached out to check if they were melting. The ritual scroll droned on in its floaty, serene voice, unaware that Elira's lungs were currently filing for emergency leave. It will be fine, Riel said gently. Orion seems calm, surprisingly calm, suspiciously calm actually. Humans usually panic more. He panics internally, Elira said automatically. I can sense it in his posture. Riel raised an eyebrow. Ah, so you're studying his posture deeply now. Elira flailed. For cultural reasons. Of course. Before Elira could find something to throw at her, the hall's communicator chimed. A holographic message shimmered into existence, Orion requesting a meeting. Elira nearly fell out of her chair. The glowgum in Riel's mouth briefly turned red, the color of delighted mockery. You should go, Riel said. Take your scroll. Take a deep breath. Do not take the posture studies. Elira gathered her things with shaking hands, nearly knocking over a pile of star charts. One floated up and bonked her lightly on the forehead, which she interpreted as a warning from the universe. Still, she walked out of the Hall of Records, telling herself that she was composed, mature, and absolutely not seconds away from a nervous breakdown. She found Orion in the observatory chamber, staring at a rotating hologram of Lethara's orbit patterns. The sponge cat creature floated beside him, wearing what appeared to be a tiny harness. Orion turned when he heard her enter, a warm, steady smile settling onto his face. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important, she said, her voice attempting dignity but achieving squeakiness. Not at all, he replied. I've been trying to figure out this display for 20 minutes. I'm fairly certain it's judging me. It only judges if you poke it wrong. I poked it 12 times. Then yes, it is judging you. Orion laughed, running a hand through his hair. The hologram shifted again, displaying orbit trails that wove like glowing ribbons. Illyra tried to focus on them, but the proximity of Orion and the quiet sincerity in his expression kept pulling her attention back. "I wanted to ask you about the ritual," he said. "I want to make sure I don't accidentally insult your ancestors or cause an emotional imbalance." Her ears twitched violently. "The ritual is simple. Well, it is simple if you do not think about it too much. The more you think about it, the more emotionally hazardous it becomes." "That sounds encouraging." She winced. "I can show you the steps if you like." They moved to a smaller training chamber, one often used for ceremonial rehearsals. The lights dimmed into soft oranges and blues. Illyra took her position, 3 paces away from him. She placed her hands precisely where the scroll instructed. Slightly raised, palms open, fingers curved in an elegant arc that looked natural when Letharans did it, and weirdly dramatic when humans attempted it. Orion mirrored her posture, though his fingers bent in angles the ancestors absolutely did not approve of. The sponge cat floated beside him like an over-enthusiastic spectator. "Now," Illyra said, trying to keep her voice steady, "we step forward, slowly." They stepped. "Now the forehead part," Orion said, sounding entirely too calm for someone about to violate emotional physics. "Yes, the forehead, gently, without bumping, or tilting, or leaving any forehead residue." Forehead residue. Some people perspire. Right, no residue. They leaned in too close, too fast. Their foreheads tapped with a comedic bonk. Illyra yelped. Orion flinched. The sponge cat made a delighted chirp. "We failed," Illyra whispered. Orion rubbed his forehead. "We can try again, slower, with fewer head injuries." She swallowed hard. "Yes, again." They tried once more. This time they leaned in gently, their foreheads meeting with soft warmth. For a moment, the air hummed faintly. Illyra felt a strange, comforting pulse brush against her thoughts, something like a shared breath, a shared quiet. She stepped back quickly, cheeks burning, ears practically vibrating like tuning forks. "That felt nice," Orion said softly. "It was acceptable," she replied, flustered. He smiled, the kind that made her heart flutter in inconvenient ways. "Thank you for showing me." "You are welcome. Please forget the head collision." Already forgotten. He definitely had not forgotten. As they walked out together, Illyra realized something unsettling. This was working. The ritual wasn't the terrifying ordeal she had imagined. It was warm, awkward, a little ridiculous, and somehow more genuine because of it. Her ears twitched, soft and uncertain, as the possibility of something deeper began to take shape, not forced by tradition, but gently awakened by choice. The council chamber glowed with ceremonial light, gold and silver beams weaving upward like towering ribbons. Illyra stood just outside the grand archway, clutching the ritual scroll so tightly it made small crackling noises of protest. Her long ears were fully alert, too alert. She looked like she was preparing to detect incoming meteors, not perform a sacred tradition. Riel stood beside her, arms crossed, chewing glowgum with the confidence of someone who had no obligations today. "You can run," she offered casually. "There's a maintenance shaft behind the west pillar. You could hide there until the next lunar cycle." "I cannot hide in a maintenance shaft," Illyra whispered. "My ears would get stuck on the pipes." "True," Riel admitted, "but your spirit would be free." Illyra took a shaky breath. Today was supposed to be the official performance of the bond of gratitude, the ritual she had practiced, dreaded, repeated, and eventually crash-tested on a human forehead. It should have terrified her more than ever, but strangely, it didn't, or at least not entirely. Beneath the nerves, something warmer glowed, something steadier, a growing strength she barely recognized as her own. And maybe that had something to do with the human currently searching for her. Orion strode down the hallway, the floating sponge cat trotting loyally behind him like a fuzzy cloud with purpose. His expression softened instantly when he saw her. "There you are. I was worried you'd fainted in a broom closet." "That was not an option I considered," she said, which was a complete lie. One of her ears twitched guiltily. Riel snorted. "See. Growth." Illyra glared at her friend before turning back to Orion. "The council is waiting. Are you prepared?" I'm prepared for whatever this ritual requires, he said, as long as it doesn't involve forehead collisions again. It will not, Elira promised. Probably. He blinked. Probably. She cleared her throat. Unlikely. He breathed out a laugh, warm and gentle. Good enough. They stepped into the council chamber together. Luminescent platforms hovered at varying heights, elders standing in flowing robes that shimmered like shifting starlight. Alien flora curled up the walls, spiral vines glowing in soft pulses, reacting to emotional energy in the room. At the center waited the ceremonial dais, its surface rippling with soft lights that responded to movement. One of the elders spoke. Elira of the Letharan Archive, Orion Holt of Terra, stepped forward. Elira's throat tightened, but she walked forward anyway. Orion matched her pace, steady and calm. When they reached the dais, the lights beneath their feet blossomed into swirling patterns, ancient energy reacting to their presence. Begin the ritual when ready, the elder instructed. Elira looked at Orion and he nodded subtly, offering quiet encouragement. She lifted her hands, palms open. He mirrored the gesture. They took the ceremonial steps toward each other. One pace, then another, then a third, stopping at the space where Letharan tradition said meaning began. Her ears trembled, but not from fear, at least not entirely. The silence around them grew rich and deep, the vines along the walls glowing brighter. Elira exhaled slowly. She leaned forward. Orion followed, forehead meeting hers with gentle closeness. No collision this time. Instead, the dais responded with a soft surge of energy, a warm pulse that shimmered upward like a rising breath. A soft hum echoed around them, threads of light twisting in delicate strands. Elira felt something stir inside her, a sense of connection, not overwhelming or frightening, but grounding. Warm. Honest. She opened her eyes and found Orion watching her, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. Was that how it's supposed to feel? He murmured. Yes, she whispered. I think it was. Another pulse of energy rose between them, and the council murmured in approval. The ritual was complete, tradition upheld. But Elira realized something important. She didn't feel bound by old rules. She didn't feel trapped by expectation. She felt relieved, empowered, like she had reclaimed something instead of losing it. The elder stepped forward. The bond is fulfilled. Your connection is honored. Elira bowed respectfully, but when she turned to Orion, she spoke in a quieter voice. The ritual is done. You no longer have any obligation. Maybe not, he said softly, but I'd like to stay anyway, if that's something you'd want. Her ears twitched, soft, shy, hopeful. I would. Riel, from the doorway, did a silent victory dance. Later, as the formalities ended and the spectators dispersed, Elira and Orion walked together through the starlit atrium outside the chamber. The floating sponge cat circled them lazily, chirping contentedly. I thought I'd feel overwhelmed today, Elira admitted, but instead I feel lighter. You faced something difficult, Orion said, but you didn't run from it, not even to a maintenance shaft. She laughed, ears flicking playfully. I considered it. I know, he said, smiling. They walked along a glowing pathway, vines shimmering softly overhead. Elira felt her earlier fears drifting away like dust in a sunbeam. She had stepped into uncertainty, risked embarrassment, challenged her traditions, confronted her own nerves, and found something unexpectedly gentle waiting for her. She glanced at Orion, and he met her gaze with quiet warmth. I don't know what comes next, she said honestly. We'll figure it out, he replied. Together, one step at a time. Her ears fluttered, no longer anxious, but steady with newfound confidence. For the first time, the future didn't feel frightening. It felt wide, bright, and beautifully possible.